Well, hello, trappers. I hope everybody's doing well. I know I didn't pre-plan any of this trapping videos, but in my trapping around the United States, as I talked about, I thought, well, I know nobody's really on board yet. You guys are going to start finding it and things along those lines. But let me go ahead and just start to say that in my trapping around the United States, I've covered Maine in one video. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot about Maine, and then I covered. I believe I went into Montana. I did that, but when I was looking at the Montana, I actually wanted to go ahead and say, well, there's a lot more to Montana than I can just put in a little simple clip in there, and I thought it might be worthy to go in there with trappers and discuss. Well, what do you want out of Maine, or what do you want out of Montana? What do you want out of it? There, even when you get into like places like Montana, you actually end up with a lot of what do you want to call it? You end up with a lot of questions before you ever begin. Then when you first start the whole thing, you kind of feel like a fish out of water. Your resources are not there today. You know, they're not. You don't have your friends. You don't have family. So you have to be very well prepared. Things along that line. The terrain and the country, like this section that I'm in, is probably about 5,000 acres. You're a long ways from anything. With Richard and I, we generally went to locations with two vehicles. We took a UTV or ATV, and we also had Richard's pickup nearby. We wanted to always make sure we had a way to get us out of such a rough environment, get us in there. So anyway, we got that to talk about. But trapping the high plains was very rewarding. This is a photo up in the Dakotas. Had a very good time doing that. We ended up having a variety of. We ran traps, and we turned right around and we ran our snares. That was something unique to us when we were doing that. I mean, we've hung a snare before, and we've caught on a snare before, but nothing's like the Dakotas. Nothing's like the picture we're looking at here. I'm currently on a pond dam, but you can see. I wish my thing would show up, but I guess I need to put a mouse on here to make that work. But if you look behind me, there's going to be a snares also on that trail, on that snowy trail also along there as well. So, I mean, anytime you get into that buckbrush and stuff like that, when you're up north, understand the difficulties that you're going to face under such extreme conditions. Richard and I, our first year to secure that ground, when we first heard the ground was made available, it was negative 25 degrees. I can't tell you, we had 3 heaters going, electric heaters in the camper, and what's worse is we actually did it as we were right after Christmas, and that's when we were there. So very cold weather on the trap line, and very hard for a person to do. Now then, we also turn right around. Let me go on up here to the next one. Trapping on the road gets harder the further west and north you travel, and I couldn't agree more on that statement. This is Richard Johnson out of Iowa. I trapped with Richard for a number of years. You will see Richard in a lot of my videos. He ended up, you got a beautiful coyote, and we're here. We actually catch one in a trap. That's very, very rewarding when you can pull off coyotes in such an extreme environment. You got such cold temperatures at night. You can get above freezing during the day. You can get into a lot of wet conditions. Dry dirt is invaluable. Waxed dirt probably necessary. things like that. So you want to make sure that you are focused on having the right stuff, the right traps, and that type of thing. When you're in a trip, such as heading to the north, I'm gonna do and jump yourself up here to I think that's timing and planning. I'm gonna jump here because traveling up north means you could be in something like this and turn right around and you're in something like this on the same trip. Matter of fact, one could change very quickly from one day to the next. I had a very hard time, even in Maine, in the Dakotas, in Montana, believing anybody talking about the weather. You couldn't do it. On this trip, we were supposed to be 50s for a high, sunny, clear conditions, and we ended up with sub-freezing temperatures and things like that. So those are very important to understand that that's a real issue to people or that's a real concern you need to deal with when you're on the trap line up north. So you need to have your snares, you need to have your gear, you need to have, I think it helps to have multiple ATVs, UTVs, whatever, you don't want to just put all your eggs in one basket. If you have friends up there or you talk to landowners, ask them how you can get in touch with them in case you're in trouble. When it was negative 25 degrees, you could have a phone on a charger in your pickup, and your phone, you could have it there for 4 hours, and then you take it off the charger to make a phone call, an emergency phone call, and you'll find out your battery's dead. It's that cold. So a lot of times plan B fails on you. So that's an honest thing there. So real quick here, I'm going to jump on over here to style of trapping. I want to check one thing out here and just verify I'm actually online. It won't take me very long, but I just want to make sure I'm actually doing it right now. So we're going to go here to Ed Snyder, going to go here to live and see if we're on it. Trapping the High Plains. Yep, I'm there right now. So that's good. I'm glad it's going as we go. But the style of trapping probably needs some adjustment. Here's what a great location, something like this. You got buckbrush. This is a relatively flat field. But I did find a track going down this trail, and you just need to set up a lot of trails is what you need to do. I'm going to go ahead here real quick and see if I can't share this. Oh, I got some folks on here, but you guys aren't. That's all right. I wasn't wanting to do it. But everything's going to change for you when you're on the road. You're probably going to your trapping styles. If you're not a snare person, you need to learn how to snare. You need to do things along that line. I also have a deal here which says trap as the locals trap. This is Mark Steck. He is in a trail, probably not, not the trail isn't to where you can see it, but that's what he's doing. He's up there in a trail right there. And why would I want to go ahead and trap just like, what? Oh, I caught you. Hey, Trapper Bob, caught you skinning skunks. You're trapping the right thing. Let me know what you think you can get for your skunks, because I know you Dakota guys have some beautiful skunks, and let everybody know, because we're all or many of us are thinking about it, even here in Kansas. But trap is the locals trap. Learn from people up there. Talk to folks. Nobody's going to give you necessarily a roadmap exactly how they do things, but read up on it. I certainly have a lot of videos, if you go back far enough, of when Richard and I and Mark Steck were together on the trap line. I still laugh when I see Mark Steck photobomb. He'll walk right in front of right in front of the camera while Richard's doing a dissertation of how he caught a coyote. I'm always tickled with it, and I'm also going to laugh over the fact that how Mark Steck is prone to step right on your trap as he's walking through the woods. Maybe maybe I'm that good at blending my sets in or something like that, but I think he's just doing it out of orneriness, but things like that. But trap as the locals trap. Learn some keys about your area. You know, when I was in Montana, Great Falls, Montana, with the student there, we had sets, and understand how variation the high plains can be, where you can look and have the $5 million view. You got Montana, beautiful snow-capped mountains. They just had, here you are in September, and they just had 3 foot of snow dumped at the top. Now you might have a line and you're down below and you're trapping some, as they call it, cane or something like that, and you're trapping, you know, you're trapping things like this coyote right here, where you're in a milo field, and the next thing you know, you're in an area up higher up in the mountains. I mean, I don't have that photo on this, but might have it up there. Next thing you know, you're up in the high thing, and traps are probably not going to work very well. You need to think about snare. And so doing as the locals do, being prepared is very important as you trap up north, and do that. So that was one of the first and earlier lessons that I learned. I don't want you to necessarily take away from this saying, Ed, you got to change, or Ed saying you got to change everything about the way you trap. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying be prepared, keep your mind open, understand that at times you may need to be a snare man. And I like carrying 300 snares or running 300 snares, taking advantage of having as much time as you possibly can. I have a thing here. Trapping the high plains require planning and timing. And and the last thing is, I'm kind of covering this. I'm going to bounce back and forth, but give yourself time. You know, when I'm in Kansas, I expect to have a pretty decent catch tomorrow. It's a fact. But when I'm in the Dakotas, I might have been on this spot for 10 days, maybe longer, before I caught this coyote. You see how the snow in that catch circle. Do you see how it's crumbly and miserable and all of that? And even it was, you know, we had warm temperatures, rain, snow, and all of a sudden you see this clod of mud inside of that trap and things like that. You're gonna have things that happen to you that require the coyotes to not be necessarily caught quickly and efficiently like you would in Illinois, or maybe like you would in Kansas or Missouri or something like that. Even in Iowa, there's the numbers of coyotes, say up around Green, Iowa. You know, a guy who catches 100 coyotes in Green, Iowa for the season earned his money and earned his time. A person who catches, you know, 100 coyotes in the Dakotas earn their money. You know, there's things we can do. Locals have a big advantage over us when you're trapping in the high plains. The locals really do. They can do things like they can go out and trap beavers in the fall, and they can go ahead and have carcasses and start. They can have friends that work at a butcher shop when the deer season comes in, and they can start dumping, you know, bones and scraps and things like that, or go get donuts or whatever. They have advantages to speed up their catch that I don't have when I'm traveling high rolling into an area that basically I'm looking for sign. I'm having to, a lot of times I hadn't even been there before. I don't even know anything about it. And I don't even know the conditions. And it might take 2 or 3 years before you ever even understand the property that you have. And I want to go on back to this, to my home when you get into something like this with the 5,000 acres behind me, or on that particular fence line, understand that you're not going to know it all right away. You're gonna develop a path, and you might be missing the primary good sources. So it's rewarding. It's fun. The fur is more valuable. We all have that. But trapping around the United States has awakened me to the fact that that not every area is treated fairly. If you follow what I'm saying, there's southeastern Indiana is probably one of the harder areas that in the timber where I've ever seen to trap. It's got a lot of people. You have smaller fields. Coyotes are more sporadic. I think like in this photo, it's pretty obvious that I have a nice trail, and it's a great location to hang some snares. I have a pond dam with the trail that I caught this coyote on. It's a good spot to put a couple of traps. It's easy right here. The coyote's probably not going to be, halfway up he's not going to be just in the grass to be in the grass. He's defined. But when you're in other areas, and I want to go here to something like this. Now, to a certain degree, this is easy as well, because if you look at that trail, you even see my footprints, and I'm walking over the top, going back to the coyotes, or along with the coyote tracks. That's kind of easy, but what if the snow wasn't there, and what if there was multiple trails, and maybe the coyotes don't necessarily want to walk in the bottom of that draw and things like that. And as this title indicates, trapping the high plains require planning and timing. That's actually all about understanding that your conditions are going to change very much when you're there. I don't like to go anywhere that, honestly, especially in the Northwest, where I'm going to be there less than 21 days. I at least plan for 21 days when I'm on such a road trip. If you catch fair weather, and the coyotes are out in the plains, they're actually running fence lines, or they're running crop changes, more crop changes than fence lines in a lot of those areas. If you're not in cattle country, if you're in more your agricultural crop country, you can really knock some coyote numbers down, and it all makes sense to a land trapper who's used to farmland trapping. But then all of a sudden the weather hits, you start getting snow, coyotes stop running crop changes, or they stop running fence lines and things like that. And now you get into areas like this. Do you know yourself how to actually trap such an area that's behind me? How long is it going to take for a coyote to come back through there after he's laid traps? When I do have a big snow, I look forward to it. It makes it easy. You start finding fresh sign easier, especially if you're in a dry and arid area that maybe the last rain they got was September and you're there in November. Well, a track can last a long time unless the wind actually wiped it out, but it can last a long time, and you might be setting up on a phantom ghost coyote, things like that. Well, all of a sudden the snow can change your luck, and you're just like, okay. But it takes about 3 days for the coyotes to really start, for the deer to open up trails, for the coyotes to start using the same trails as the deer, so things like that. That's what I'm saying. Trapping the high plains require planning and timing. I want to go back to this, making sure you have plenty of snares on hand. And hey, thank you very much, Dan of Trapper Snore, SNORR. What does that stand for, Dan? I'm glad you did that, or glad you're here. So Trapper Snore. I don't know that one, but glad to have you along here. So but no, I get, and I try to recognize, folks, sorry if I get myself off track, but having plenty of snares, having plenty of traps, having plenty of dry dirt, having plenty of waxed dirt, having You know, is T-bones allowed? Are they not allowed? Do you got to go in with fake fur or fake T-bones? Things along those lines. I mean, whatever's legal. I want to come to this here, and also this is a part one. You know, that's very important for guys to understand. Is the fur worth the cost? I'm in a Milo field. I have a beautiful, gorgeous, white furred coyote. It's getting bleached out in the sun. But I had to travel 12 hours to get to that coyote from where I live. My truck's going to get 15 miles per gallon. Well, probably around 12 miles per gallon when I'm loaded with all my gear and a trailer and a UTV, or do 9 miles per gallon if I'm carrying the camper and things like that. And remember, that's 12 hours if I can go 65 miles an hour, things along those lines. So maybe it's a 15-hour actual trip, things along those lines. Plus, we do our very best to try when we go on these trips to find free. I think that's important. I want to find free lodging, or I want to be able to find a building that I can hook a camper up to for free. Because remember, it does cost. I think we're offering a service here. I think we're offering sustainable, natural, organic, renewable sources. All right. Thank you very much for letting me know that and letting the crowd know what that is. So very interesting. Check that out, folks, if you want, and see more of what Trapper Snore is. So I will do so when I get done here. But is fur worth the cost? That's important. And but I look for free. If they have lodging, wonderful. That's even better. If I can go with less, even more, can I bring? Do you have cowboy lodging? That's what I always like to call it, especially on some ranches and stuff like that. A lot of places will have an old. They'll have a trailer for you that the cowboys stay in during the wrangling season of spring to fall and things along those lines. If you're fortunate enough, well, you can maybe ask them if you could stay in that. Again, try to see if you can get it done for free and things like that. Let's move on. Be ready for adverse conditions. Also, there's bones here in this picture here. Make sure it's legal, so understand your area, things along those lines. I think the last thing and again, I kind of already covered this, but give yourself time. My initial thoughts about the Dakotas was, and I took it as a 2-year project when I went there, and I think if you go to the north and west or travel up north, wherever you go, if it's strange to you, it might be, if you're, even though I'm not legally allowed to trap Minnesota, but let's just say I'm from, Walnut Grove, Minnesota, where Little House on the Prairie stories was written. But I want to trap up in Warroad, Minnesota. I'm just using this as an example, where the wolves are and things along those lines. That's still quite a bit different than where Walnut Grove, Minnesota is. We might share the commonality that we're in very cold conditions, and maybe even down in Walnut Grove I have a lot more wind where I'm at, whereas up in Warroad maybe there's enough trees up there that makes it a little easier, but or maybe the snows are the same or they're different, but all these things make a difference. There's bear up in Warroad, there's wolves in Warroad. There's definitely more things to go off of, but I like to think of these trips as a 2-year adventure. Year 1 is about me just trying to find the property, trying to find the boundaries of the property, try to see if I can find more property, find out when a basketball game is. So maybe you can go meet some ranchers that might have a kid at the game and, save you from knocking on doors and things like that. Try to do your road trip scouting or discussions more in knock on some doors in June. Try to catch people on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday versus a Monday or Friday. Mondays, everybody's busy. If they had any kind of a weekend at all, or maybe you were working a skeleton shift or skeleton crew or something along that line, all that, people are busy. So I try not to interrupt them, but Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is a good time in June for me to go visit somebody, knock on doors, get permission. First year's all about that. The second year is now I know where I'm going to go. My GPS already has some locations already locked into it. Maybe I might even venture to go at a different time of year. I know Trapper Bob, he gets up there. A lot of them guys don't even bother to go out until the snows really fly good, or they really, they're going to run the snow machines, or they're going to set up a snare line, or they just want the fur to get better. The conversation I had with the trapper I can never remember the name of this town up in Minnesota, but he just made the statement: the difference of a heavy fur and a semi-heavy fur in the Dakotas is you can catch a semi-heavy fur, is what this trapper told me. Roll it up roll it up. You could catch one in the 1st of November, end of October. Roll it up and it'll fit in a Walmart bag. But by November 15th, you allow that fur to, if you were to allow that animal to continue to grow, then you skin it after November 15th and you go to roll it up. It might have put on enough fur it will no longer fit into that Walmart bag. Just using that, understand that as a potential. And so for many folks, what are you going to the Dakotas for? You're going to go trap Dakotas in September. Maybe it's legal. Maybe you want to do that, but maybe, but is that the kind of coyote that you're really going for? Or do you want to go, or, is your coyote more of a longer fur, more under fur? Also, snow bleaches out the fur, giving it that nice white appearance, versus, you see how these coyotes are getting a little bit lighter. They're naturally lighter colored, but this coyote's under fur is going to get even lighter once the snows fly and things along that line. When you're in something like this and you have that snow reflecting that sun, that fur is going to get better for you. So I have a coyote hanging in my shop. That Richard and I wish I'd have put that double that Richard and I caught, but they were the two most beautiful coyotes that I've ever seen caught as a tandem in my life, and we were blessed on that one. Also understand the next thing I want to talk about: timing and planning. Yeah, I think planning and timing. I guess that's probably about as good as you could say. Coyotes caught in Britton, South Dakota, which is right there 8 miles south of North Dakota, and compare that to coyotes caught closer to the northwestern, I think it's Saskatchewan, Montana, and North Dakota. They're two different coyotes, in my opinion. I jokingly tell folks, pretty much most states, especially when you get above I-80, we can all catch a Dakota coyote, and we can all catch an Arkansas coyote. I believe that. I've seen some of the most underfurred critters in the Dakotas that I could have caught in Texas. And you're sitting there saying now, how in the world could I be here around Thanksgiving and look at this, for lack of better words, this pathetic little old critter here, and wonder how in the world are you going to even make it right now? You don't even have any fur or anything. We're not talking about a pup. We're talking about an older dog, and they just don't have the fur. So that's kind of the end of my talk, and I appreciate you two guys who acknowledge that you were here and all that. I really thank you very much for coming. It's a big help to me to get back into the trapping. Thankfully, YouTube is monetizing me again, and I appreciate that. And that gives me a little bit more effort to go and want to do this. I got lots of film, but today's topic was about trapping in the high plains. I hope something like this I hope this series is kind of fun for you as I take you around to the different states and show you some of my different adventures. I think I can just about say that I've trapped in enough areas that I can about relate to anybody in your area. And the quality of fur, I kind of understand. What's a good fur, what's a bad fur, I know this fur looks like a Dakota. I know this fur looks like a Southern Illinois, or West Central Illinois fur. So a little bit of everything. I know the difference between a silky fur and fur that, that's not, just for the record, there is coyotes out there in the Northwest. I don't want to say where, because that's mine. For those of you who know it, and I just don't want to give it away because I still like to trap it. But where the fur is springier, and it's silky springier type of fur, and has great color, and it really puts the money in your pocket on those types of things. Or that's the one I'd really want to get a fur coat made out of and things like that. So, hey folks, if you like these types of videos, we'll wrap it up here. Go ahead and click that like and subscribe. And like always, tight chains until we meet again, and I'll look forward to our next time together.